Hey y'all, this is Jack Ward, and today we are going to be using Ghidra to reverse engineer CrackMe 0x05 through 0x09. Alright, on the last video that we had, you guys left a lot of really good comments, and I want to run through some of those comments real quick. So the first comment that I got was, really great, this helps noobs like me get my feet wet. With so much info out there and the newness of Ghidra, it's really hard to find something that is basically getting started with the RE using Ghidra. Oh, hey man, I'm glad you found this video. Hopefully it'd be very beneficial and useful to you, and I'm glad that I can do that for you. Alright, another comment. I discovered that if you input at most 15 integers into 0x04, that it will pass. Interesting. That's really good that you were able to reverse engineer to the point to find out that you can pass in that many integers. Alright, another comment. This is really helpful. I'm trying to start learning the RE process, and you walking through the steps makes this super understandable. I hope your channel gets more attention. This is great. Thank you. I hope the channel gets more attention too. Another one says, thank you for this. Oh, hey, thank you for watching. I wouldn't do this if you guys didn't watch. Another one is, tell me how to reverse 0x50. If you find 0x50, send it to me and I will help you reverse engineer it. But as for today, I can help you reverse engineer 05. So pay attention. What theme are you using here? Can you upload it? Thanks. So I am using the dark mode in Ghidra. It comes natively, and if you look underneath your comment, I've also commented a link of where you can find one of my videos where it goes through how I got dark mode. The video is called Installing Ghidra in Windows. Alright, another one says, how exactly are you planning to fix the message about debugging information being missing from the PE file? That's an amazing question. Every time that I have gone and auto-analyzed one of my pieces of malware, it always came up with a PDB error. What that PDB file is that Ghidra is trying to find that PDD file, which Visual Studios puts into any executable that is being ran in debug mode. Well, these files aren't being run in debug mode, so that PDD file is not there. So what I'm going to do is when I analyze it, I'm going to uncheck the search for that PDB file. And I will show you how to do that at the very beginning of this tutorial. Another comment says, great video. Well, thank you. I appreciate the compliments. And then another one says, no offense. Every time I search RE tutorial, whether it's Ghidra or not, I get disappointed because every video is about enter your password C type program. I've never seen a tutorial about unpacking, VM protection, or something more complicated. That is an amazing comment, and we are going to be working on some of those malwares with the more complicated schemes to include VM protect and obfuscation. We'll be doing more of those videos as the tutorial unfolds, and more in the future. Awesome, guys. Hey, thank you for those comments. I greatly appreciate them. So what do you say that we get into it? Alright, so requirements for this tutorial is much like any other requirement for any other tutorial. You gotta have Ghidra installed. You gotta have a basic knowledge of how to use it. You gotta have the CrackMe series. I will be providing the link for that CrackMe series. And you should have seen the other video in which I did 0x00 through 04. If you haven't seen those videos, go back, check them out. And you can catch those videos on my YouTube page. I got reversing Ghidra I have reversing CrackMe with Ghidra, setting up Ghidra server, Ghidra overview. And once again, guys, like, subscribe, and comment on these videos and to this channel. Alright, so in order to use Ghidra, you have to have an operating system of some sort. Doesn't matter what kind, as long as you have the Java JDK and an SDK installed, and that you have Ghidra installed. And then of course you're going to need the executables, and you can find the executables at the link provided. So let's get into it. Alright, so I'm going with the assumption that you guys have watched the video from last time, 00 through 04. And with that said, if you are those who have already done those videos, you can continue along by opening up your Ghidra, opening up your project. I labeled mine CrackMe, and this should be where you left off last time. So now we're going to work on 05 through 09. If you're just starting and you're skipping 0 through 4, first off, we'll go back and watch the video. Second off, if you really don't want to, go ahead and click File, New Project, Non-Shared Project, name it whatever you want to. I called mine CrackMe, and click Next until you get that Finish button to highlight up. Once it's highlighted, go to where you downloaded 5 through 9, drag and drop them into the project. Once you get this screen asking if you want to import the batch, click OK. Okay, and once the batch is imported, we can get started. We are going to get started with number 5. So go ahead, either double click or drag and drop onto the Ghidra icon to open up the code browser. Alright, it's saying that it wants to be analyzed. Do you want to analyze it now? Every single time I've done this, I've clicked yes. And every single time that I've clicked yes, I had to find all the .text functions and rename every single one of them. So one of the viewers of the last video came up with a really great idea on how to skip all that unnecessary renaming. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what he showed me. So if you go to YouTube and you do a search for Ghidra and then .text, you will see that this gentleman made a video specifically with me in mind. This is an inspiration. This is a video that was inspired by my last video, in which I spoke about the ability to not be able to have Ghidra automatically translate the .text functions for me. So go ahead and take a search for that. Once again, Ghidra.text. Look through that. Check out his video and see how he suggests that we fix this .text error. Having said that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to follow his instructions right here, right now. So you don't have to look at his video, but I do ask that you jump over to his channel and give him a like. So I'm going to click no, which is something I've never done. I've always clicked yes. I'm going to click no this time because what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over to this filter thing. I'm going to do a filter search for text. And all this stuff that says .text, I'm just going to get rid of all of it. The program automatically wants to call everything .text. I don't want it to call everything .text. Now that we've gotten rid of all those .text, now we're going to analyze it. And now Ghidra should be able to analyze everything and give it the good and proper name. Alright, and this is where the PDB error comes up. Once again, PDB is something that a lot of IDEs, a lot of the development environments automatically put into their programs. What a PDB is a program database file, in which, in this case, it is very popular to be used by Visual Studios when a program is being debugged. So if the program comes with that PDB file, Ghidra can use it and get a lot more detailed information on what the program is doing. This program does not have a PDB file. So what we're going to do is we're going to analyze this again, and we are going to unselect some of our options. I'm going to click OK for now, but then I'm going to go ahead and exit out of it. I'm going to ask for it to not save changes so I can show you how I'm going to make that correction so we don't have the PDB errors pop up. I'm going to double click on the same one. We're going to go ahead and analyze it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to unselect PDB. I'm going to hit analyze. We're going to let us do its thing. And now you're going to notice something different. Another thing that we are going to have to overcome, in which we get this error talking about PERTTI analyzer. All right, that's another error that I'm not quite. That's another error that we do not need. So let's go ahead and close out of it again and go back into it. We are going to unselect PDB. And then we're going to take a little look at what is this RTTI analyzer. If we look at it, it says Analyzer finds and creates all of the RTTI metadata structure associated with their VF tables. This is something that does not apply to this piece of, or this CrackMe example, so I'm going to unclick that. And while I'm down here, I am going to ensure that this propagate external parameters is enabled. So once again, what I've done, disable PDB, disable RTTI, and then I did enable the propagate external parameters. Now let's analyze it. And ladies and gentlemen, for the first time ever, we have now analyzed one of our CrackMes without any errors. Alright, and then I want to double check, make sure that there aren't any text in here. There are some text. Now, one of the reasons why we usually don't analyze first and then delete the text is because now the texts have multiplied. Now there's multiples of them. So one last time, I'm going to close out of it. I'm going to go back into it. This will be the last time that we do this one. I do not want to analyze it. I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to search for all the text. I'm going to delete by holding shift and pressing down on all the text. Now that all the texts are gone, now we're going to analyze it. Making sure that we do our 3 selections in which we are unselecting PDB, unselecting RTTI, and we are going to select external parameters. Click analyze. Then once our bar at the bottom right reaches 100%, then we're good to go, and we are good to go. All right. So just like all the other CrackMes that we've done, I jump into the exports, I jump into the CRT startup, and I double click on CRT startup. There's multiple different ways to get to the main process. This is the way that I choose. And down here next to exit code equals, we see our main function. Let's click into that. So in the past, this printf statement used to just be .text. This one used to be .text. This one used to be .text, and we would have to guess what it is. Since we deleted all the .text and we allowed Ghidra to analyze by itself, it now tells us exactly what these are. So same thing as last time, I know this scan is expecting a string and that this is actually going to be my input. So it's taking whatever I put in here, put into my input, and then we're going to do a check for my input. Double click into check. And then I always relabel everything as I see them. So I'm going to rename this one length because we are doing the string length of that parameter, in which we're going to get an integer value or a size value of length. So I'm going to hold down Alt and I'm going to hit my left arrow. I'm going to go back here. I'm going to see what was originally passed in. What was passed in was an integer of my input. So I'm going to double click back in here. I'm going to go to change this to my input. Okay, so if the string length is less than or equal to this variable, which is going to be our counter. Once again, check the videos in the past, you'll see why I called it counter. And then for every character in my input, we're going to save it as this, which I'm going to call this character in array. And then this scanf is going to take character in array, cast it, for lack of a better term, into this local variable, in which if we middle click, we'll see that it is an integer. So I'm just going to call this one int. And then int plus something equals something. I'm going to call this total. And it's going to iterate every single time, adding another number to the original total to get the new total, in which the int total is going to be this. If we just let it hover, we'll see that's 16. I'm going to jump into the assembly code and actually come down here to convert and choose unassigned decimal of 16. All right, and if the total equals 16, then we're going to go into parallel. So let's really quickly check out and see exactly how this is going to work. CMD. So let's jump into the desktop. Let's go into the CrackMe folder, go into tutorial, and then let's run the CrackMe 05 file. Alright, so if we look over here in Ghidra, it says the total is going to be 16. Once again, the way that we're looking at it is that each integer, let me see if I can phrase it a little bit better. Each character is going to be turned into an integer, in which each integer is going to be added to what it was last to come up with a new total, in which the total needs to come out to 16. So we're looking at individual numbers, and the individual numbers need to equal out to 16. So if I write in 1 6, that's going to equal out to 7. So that's going to be wrong. So I need to find two numbers that equal out to 16. Or in this case, what about a series of 4 numbers equal out to 16? Bam, that's it. Let's go ahead and continue in here and see exactly what's going on here. So the answer is anything that equals out to 16. Alright, so our input is going to be my input, and it's going to be a character array of my inputs. So let's click into here. I'm going to go ahead and relabel this my input. So you may be asking, if I got the answer, why am I continuing on? Because there's something different about this one. The answer is not just 16. It's about how you get to 16 as well. So this scanf is going to take the input and it's going to, once again, more or less cast it into an integer, and it's going to save it as a local variable, which I'm going to recall integer. So if integer and 1 equals 0. Well, what does that mean? Alright, so let's think about it. I don't have anything that says that I have a limit on how many numbers I can do. So I can either do CrackMe 05 with a password of 8 and 8. 8 and 8 equals 16. That counts. I can do what I did before, 4, 4, 4. That counts. I can even do 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And that counts. So in essence, since the password is up to 16 numbers, or up to the number 16, regardless of how many numbers are actually in the password, I, in essence, could do the number 1 16 times, correct? Well, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All right, let's see what happens. Incorrect. Well, let's look. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is absolutely 16 numbers, all 1. Why is it incorrect? 1 plus 1 all the way up to 16 is 16. 100% without question. Why is it incorrect? It is incorrect because of this right here. So, what does this mean? And why does 16 ones not equal 16? Well, in order to answer that question, we need to look at this little guy right here. We need to look at our bitwise operator. So let's take a look. So if we're learning about bitwise, and we need to figure out exactly what this operator does. In C code and almost any other programming language code, there are certain operators in which this is one of them. And when I say bitwise, we are taking the numbers and translating them into their binary representation. And then we're doing some addition, subtraction, and some things on top of that to get an answer. So for example, if I am doing a 3 with a bitwise and a 4, we're going to write out 3 in a bitwise in a binary translation. We're going to write out 4 in a binary translation. So once again, this is the 1's column, this is the 2's column, this is the 4's column, this is the 8 column, 16 column, 64 column, 32 columns, 64 column, and 128 column. So 2 plus 1 is 3. Likewise, since this is the 1's, this is the 2's, this is the 4, this is 4. So now we're looking at it. If 1 and 0, because they are different, we're going to be putting a 0 right here. Or even better said, that they are not the same, so the answer is going to be 0. So if they were the same, if this was a 1 and this was a 1, then this would be a 1. Alright, so if we just write in, if we get 16, and 16, once again, this is the 16th column right here. This 0 and this 1 are not the same, so this is going to be 0. So we need to put in the answer of 16 in such a way that the last digit is not a 1. Because we want to make sure that it all equals out to 0 in the end. So what are we pretty much trying to say here? What we are trying to say is that if it ends in an odd number, then it's not going to be accepted. So when we put in all these ones, it translated it into a normal number. Translated into an integer. If that integer is odd, then it is not going to pass. So, for example, this is an odd number. This is an even number. This is an odd number. This is an even number. All right. So the answer to this challenge is that it equals to 16, and that when you look at the numbers and make it as an integer by itself, that the integer is even. Interesting, huh? All right, so that is the answer to number 5. Let's go ahead and check out number 6. Close, save. Let's go into number 6. Number 6 is also another doozy. It's not been analyzed. You want to analyze it now? No, I do not want to analyze it right now because I want to go through all the text. I want to delete all the text. Delete, 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 delete. Okay, now I want to analyze it. Auto analyze. I want to get rid of the PDB. I want to get rid of this RTTI. I do want to add in my external parameters. All right, it is complete with no errors. X out of this .text. And then let's jump into, not imports, let's jump into exports. Main CRT startup. Click on CRT startup. Come here to the main function. Okay, same thing, different day. We're going to change this into my input. Going to verify that it changed into my input right here. And then, wow, we got something new, don't we? So, not only are we going to call check, not only are we adding in the same my input as we always have for the last couple CrackMe tutorials, but now we're adding in another parameter. And then went ahead and labeled this one as env. All right, so let's go back a little bit, and instead of pressing the back button or everything, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click out here on export, then click back on CRT startup. I'm going to follow it back down the chain real quick. I'm going to jump back into main, and then I'm going to stop. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go back one. Let's see exactly what main is passing in. So here's the exit code, and if all goes well, it'll reply back with an exit code. Here's the main, here's our arguments, and then here's that third variable. If I middle click, I see that the third variable is also being instantiated one up, in which it is equal to p environ. All right, so if we do some open source research, we will find out that what this variable is an environment variable inside of the Windows operating system. So it is looking for an environment variable to be passed. All right, well, let's figure out exactly what kind of environment variable it is requesting. So I've changed this to my input. We have this as env. I'm going to leave it like that. Let's jump into it. All right, really quickly from the top down, I'm going to go ahead and relabel my parameters. And I'm going to relabel them the same way they came in. So this one came in as my input. This one came in as environment variable. And then this environment variable, for some reason, it changed it to an integer. So I'm going to hold down Alt, hit my left arrow a couple times. I'm going to go back one and see exactly how it was supposed to come in. Here it says it came in as a character with 2 stars environment variable. But when we double click into our check, we see that it changed to an integer. This is one of the tricky things about Ghidra. It doesn't always get the data types correct. So we're going to go ahead and fix it for our good friend Ghidra. I'm going to hold down Control and I'm going to hit L. Then I'm going to rename this character type to be a char star star. So now that it is char star star, it should make it a little bit easier on us as we go through. Alright, top from bottom, I don't know what these locals are yet, but while true, we're looking for the string length of my input. So this variable I'm going to call length. And if length is greater than or equal to this, which is going to be my counter, then break. And once again, if it's 0 and the counter is 0, then something's wrong with the program, going to break out. Alright, but for every counter character, or every character in the array of my input, I'm going to call it character in array. Character in array then casted to this, which is going to be an integer. I'm going to call it int. And then int plus the previous total gives us the new total, which the total needs to be equal to, when we convert it, it's going to be equal to 16. Then we go into parallel input and then the environment variable. Alright, so once we get in, I'm going to change this immediately to my input. And I'm going to name this to env. And then I'm going to go back to my input and realize that I have a spelling error. Correcting that to my input. Alright, once again, it still believes that the environment variable that's coming in is an integer. It is not an integer. It is a array. So I'm going to hold down control. I'm going to hit L. I'm going to call it char star star. Alright. And then as we go through, you'll see why it's very important for us to recast or to retype the variable. Alright, scanf my input into an integer, in which we are going to call integer. And then we're going to send integer in this environment variable to another function called dummy. So let's click into dummy. See what we have here. Alright, so automatically do stuff if this times this plus parameter equals 0, and oh my gosh, that is pretty confusing. So let's go ahead and look at this parameter. I know that this is going to be my environment variable, env. It requires that all the parameters be committed. Yes, let's go ahead and commit. And then this parameter is my input. And yes, once all parameters be committed, I'm fine with that. But here is the confusing part. What exactly are we looking at here? Obviously 0 is either 0 or it's null. So something about this being not null. But what exactly does this mean here? This is where our types up here at the top are very important, because this is still an integer, so it doesn't really know how to translate to this. And once we change it from an integer to a character, you'll see exactly what it's trying to do. Well, let's go ahead and go with my input real quick. Let's control L. I'm going to change this to what we know it is, in which it is an int. Is it an int? Let's go ahead and cast it, and then let's hold down our alt and then press the back left arrow a couple times. Let's see exactly how it goes in. It does get cast to an int before it gets passed in a dummy. So in this case, it is passed in as an integer, but this is passed in as a character array. So hold control, hit L, call it character with a double star. Now let's go ahead and cast it. And then we see that this corrects itself. This makes a lot more sense. So if the array, which has a counter, so if the characters in the array are not null, or I'm sorry, are null, then return 0. Now that makes sense. If the array is null, return 0. But if the string compare of the characters in the array equals this LOL to at least the third character, then it returns something. So this is going to be a result. But now we need to figure out exactly what this even means. So string compare of what was passed in earlier to LOL to 3. Well, let's see if we can find out some information about string compare. So this C++.com is a great place with some really good information, in which they were nice enough to tell us that the first parameter is a string, the second parameter is a string, and then the third parameter is a number, is an integer number. So it compares up to the number of characters in the C of the C string of string 1 to those of the C string string 2. Right, so if we look here, LOLO has 4 characters. So string compare is comparing this environment variable to LOL, but at least the first 3 characters have to match. Alright, so once it gets done with that, it returns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on dummy up here, and I'm going to click here because there's another way to go back a couple functions. In which you hold control, you hit shift, and you hit F. When you hold control and you hit shift and you hit F, this action prompt is going to come up, and I'm going to click find references to. I'm going to click on the one and only. And that's another way to kind of go backwards. So since I'm already highlighting on this variable, I'm going to name it result. Alright, so here, there has to be an environment variable that is LOLL. I'm going to double click into it real quick. Verify that it is LOLLO, and then let's go back and see what happens if it does find LOLL as an environment variable. It's going to return a 1 if it does find it, in which that 1, if 1 is not equal to 0, in which this case 1 is not equal to 0, assuming that LOL is found where it wants to find it, then this is going to be a counter. Then while the counter is below 10 and the integer is even, aka not odd, if the integer and the bitwise AND of 1 equals 0, so thus if the integer is even, then the password is okay. Alright, so we have to get a result of 1 here, saying that there is an environment variable called LOLO, and there can't be more than 10 numbers inside of our answer, and our answer has to be even. If all those are there, then the password is okay. So let's take a shot at it. Let's go CrackMe06.exe. Let's go with 4444 because that worked before, correct? It worked right up here, so it should be good, right? 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4 equals a 16, and it's under 10, and it's even, but it's still incorrect. Why is it incorrect? Because we are missing that environment variable. Well, how do you set an environment variable? Well, you set the environment variable this way. Does not exist anymore. Keep this file in the editor. Yes, I would. Okay, so the way that you set an environmental variable inside of the command prompt is you merely set the environment variable. So we're going to go set LOLO equals, and for this tutorial, for this particular CrackMe, it doesn't really matter what you set it as, but you have to set it as something. So I'm going to set it as hello. Alright. Once you type in set hello, once you type in set hello and give it a variable, you can actually go in and take a look at what it really is. And the way that you can do that is by typing in set LOLO, and that will tell you what it is currently set as. Alright, so what is set? That's an amazing question. Set is a way to set your environment variable. So if you just type in set all by itself, you're going to see all the environment variables that your computer currently has in it. In which, if you look really closely, there is set equals hello right there. So now if everything goes well, we should have an environment variable that is LOLO, and at least the first 3 letters is LOL, in which it should return back a number 1, in which if it does return something that's not 0, aka number 1, and if the counter is below 10, and if it is even, then the password is okay. So we have our variable, we've verified that. Our password of 4444 is absolutely underneath a counter of 10, and 4444 is an even number, so now we should be able to do 4444, and we got it. Alright, password is okay. We have completed number 6. Alright, I'm going to X out of that. I'm going to hit save. Okay, let's go on to number 7. Has not been analyzed. You want to analyze it now? No, I don't, because I want to look for .text, and I'm going to delete all the .text. Oh, wait a minute. There is no .text. This one is compiled a little bit differently. So, let's go ahead and see what all sorts of mayhem we're going to get into. Let's click on Analyze. Let's go ahead and do our 3 that we always do, which is unclick PDB, unclick RTTI, and let's enable external parameters. Let's click Analyze, and let's see exactly what we have here and why there are no .text. All right, so I'm going to jump into exports. I'm going to go to the entry. I'm going to go to CRT startup. Oh, there's not one there. Instead, it's called fun or function. So this seems like it is compiled in a different way that Ghidra wasn't quite ready for. So it calls all the functions fun. So I've done this enough where I know at this point in the program, it's going to lead me into my CRT startup. So I'm going to just call this main CRT. I'm going to click into here. And then let's go ahead and take a look. There is no main. But in the past, we've known that main usually passes an exit code once it's complete. So here's the exit code, and here's a randomly named function. And then if we look, here's our pi variable, which equals to our environmental variable. So it would be very safe to assume that this is our main function, even though it doesn't say it. So I'm going to rename this to be main. Let's go ahead and click into it. And we didn't have to delete the .text because it seems like the .text weren't there because of the way it was compiled. But it did go ahead and give us our printfs and our scanfs. There are these 2 functions that we haven't really worried about in the past. We could worry about them. We're going to skip them for the time being. And this is usually where we find our check function. So I'm going to go ahead and rename it check. So what you would need to do if you found this program and it's not part of a CrackMe series and all you see are functions, you would actually need to click into every single function until you find a Microsoft API that makes sense. And then you start renaming functions, whatever the best you can. I usually go in and I rename everything possible and then what I think it is. A possible DLL injection, possible memory allocation. I keep writing possible on all the functions until I get an idea of what the overall program can do, and then I start refining the name of those functions. But we do know that this one is check, in which our local 7 I'm going to rename to my input. Even though it's compiled differently, it's still the same type of program. This parameter 3, I'm pretty sure it's our environment variable, but I want to double check. So I'm going to write just real quick possible environmental variable just for now. And then I'm going to go ahead and come back over here. I'm going to click on exports once and then click on entry. That way it takes me right back to the beginning. I don't need to hit my alt and my left arrow 100 times. Let's go into main CRT. Let's come back down here. I just want to make sure that this 3rd variable that is being passed in is the environment variable, and it looks like it is. So now instead of calling it possible environment variable, I'm just going to call it environmental variable, and ENV for short. Alright, so I am very certain so far that all these are labeled correctly. So let's jump into the check function. Alright, so starting from the top, let's go ahead and change this. This is going to be my input. Nothing's changed there. This is going to be the environmental variable. Once again, it's calling it an int. I want that to be a char array. All right, and I do that by Control L. I'm going to go char star star. All right, let's look down. I'm not going to name those just yet. While true, string length of my input is going to equal to length. And length is less than or greater than my counter. And then for every character in the array, I'm going to call this char an array. Once again, that's the way that I call it. And then scanf is going to take that char and array and cast it to a variable that I'm going to call int, which int plus the old total equals the new total, which new total has to equal 0x10, which converts to unsigned decimal of 16. And then we get this other function that we don't quite know what it is. I'm trying to remember if this one was called dummy or if this one was called parallel. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to click into it and determine what I want to call it by seeing what is in there. As soon as I get in, I know it's passing my input. Then I know it's passing my environment variable, because once again I can go back a couple by holding Alt and hitting left arrow. I can see that that's exactly what it's passing in my input and the environment variable, which last time I checked was a character array. So let's click into it, and this says that it's an int. It's not an int, it's a char array, character array. So I do that. All right, and then this function calls this function as well. Let me go ahead and relabel this to int, because scan cast it to an integer, and I'm going to call it int. And then we continue passing this into yet another function, in which this function has this crazy thing again to make sure that it's not null. And once again, it looks very confusing because we're not quite sure, or Ghidra is not quite sure what to do with an integer. But good news is that it's not an integer, it's a char array. It just typed it incorrectly. Which this first one is my input. And did it come in as an integer or a string? I'm holding Alt and I'm pressing my left arrow a couple times, and I am verifying that it came in as an integer. It was cast in as an int. I saved it as int. So I'm going to cast it. I'm going to type it as an integer. All right, but now that we fixed the environment variable to be a character array, it is now properly determining that the character array at the counter is not null. So once again, if it's not null, if it is null, return 0. If it's not null, then do something. It makes perfect sense now. This is the same thing as we saw last time. The string compare of the environment variable to LOLO. At least the first 3 characters of LOLO have to be LOL. I'm going to call this result. So there's pretty much nothing different about this function, all except one thing, is that not only does it return 1, it also saves 1 as a data point. So if it does all this, and if it succeeds, it's going to return 1 and save a data point as 1. So I'm going to call this the result of the string compare. So that way I can see it very clearly if it shows up anywhere else in my code. Then I'm going to go ahead and rename this function to, I'm going to call it verify LOLO. There we go. All right. So now I can hold the Alt button down and hit the left arrow a couple hundred times, or I can click here once. And that's going to bring me to where I need to be inside of the listing, inside the assembly code. And then from here I can hold down Control, hold down Shift, hit F. I can find references to this, and it's just going to take me right back to where I was earlier, so I don't have to click Alt and left arrow a couple hundred times when I can just do this. All right, so if we go into this function, and LOL is indeed an environment variable that is passed through or is inside of your system variables inside of your machine, then it is going to come back with a 1. So I'm going to call this result LOLO. Wait, I think I already have a result LOLO. No, I have a result for string compare. So result LOLO, it would be a good thing to call this one. So if the result is not 0, aka if the result is 1, then let's go ahead and make the counter to 0 and then start counting up to 10 if the integer is even. And if the result of the string compare is 1, then password is okay. So this is exactly like the last one, except there is an additional verification data point in which this data has to equal 1. So let's see what we have. If that's the case, I should be able to use the exact same password as last time, in which 4444 is underneath the counter of 10. It is even. And I still have LOLO inside of my environment variables, so I should be able to type in 4444, get my answer. Subsequently, 88, and get my answer. There we go. Hey, we have completed yet another one, and this one was slightly different because of the data that was also required as a secondary validation. All right. So there's one last thing that I want to check. I just want to go back one more function to see if there's anything else that we need to check up on. All right, so we are still in number 7, in which we have found our answer. We are complete, right? Yes. But there's still a little bit more in this program that is interesting. So I want to go ahead and relabel this one, because if everything is okay, we are going to verify that the password is okay. So if the password is okay and everything is done, we are going to call exit here. So we're going to say password is okay, and then we're going to exit. But where is the password is invalid command at? Where is that published at? So we look at the string length, and if the string length is less than the counter, and then the counter character in the array, then we cast the character in the array to an int, in which we add the int to the total, and if the total is 16, we go into here. If the total is not 16, we skip over this if, and then we come into this function. So let's click into this function, see what it is. When we click in, we see that this function is just to write password incorrect. So I'm going to call this print incorrect. And we're going to jump out a little bit. I'm holding down Alt and my left arrow key. Take me back some. So we're going to print incorrect. So I'm going to jump into this one more time. I just want to show you that when it prints incorrect, it does have an exit code of 0. Alright, so I went back one function. So, while true, do all this, and if the total was 16, come into here, print that the password is okay, and then exit. Or if not 16, then jump into this print incorrect, and print that it's incorrect, then exit. Those are our only two options. But if for some reason you magically find a way to not go into here and not exit, and if you find a way to magically not jump into here and not exit, there's a little bit more code just in case. Once again, this is verify LOL. We've seen that in the past. We know if it verifies that LOL is there, then it's going to give us a result. And that if the result is 1, then it's going to go into a counter less than 10. As long as it's equal, then what? So, if all these match up, it prints this out and then it exits. So here's my question to you. I want you to write in the comments if you are able to type in a password inside of 0x07 that prints out this string right here. Because as I'm going through this, I cannot find a way where you cannot pass in something that is either going to fall into here or fall into here. If it's 16, it goes into here and then it exits. If it's not 16, it goes into here and then it exits. Which means that you, in order to get this to print, you must find a way to have something that is not equal to 16, but still equal to 16. That has a counter less than 10 and is still even. And then you have to print out this string. So that is my challenge to you. Let me know in the comments if you've been able to get this string to print out, and I would love to see what is the password that you typed in to get this to happen. There are some things that I've been thinking about on how it could happen. I want to see what you get first. All right, so number 7 is complete. Let's go ahead and jump into number 8. All right, would you like to analyze it? No, let's not. Let's do a search for .text. Let's get rid of all these. I'm holding down shift, pressing the down arrow, deleting all the text. Analyze, auto analyze. Let's get rid of PDB. Let's go ahead and get rid of RTTI. Let's go ahead and enable external parameters. Click Analyze. Let that parse on through. I'm going to hit this red X, get rid of that dot text. Let's jump into exports. Let's jump into CRT startup. Jump into CRT startup. Scroll down, find our main. Still passing in the environment variable. That's all cool. My environment variable is being passed in. All right, here's our print, our scan, our check. I'm going to rename this to my input. I'm going to immediately jump into the check. I'm going to relabel my parameters. Once again, my input. And then I'm going to call this one environment. It is not an integer. It is indeed a char array. So I'm going to hold down Control, hit L, rename it or retype it to be a char array. All right, string length of my input. I'm going to call this length. If length equals my counter, then break. If it's greater than the counter, keep on going, in which every character in the array I'm going to label as char in array. Each char in array is going to be casted in as an integer, which I want to call integer. Integer plus old total equals new total. New total has to equal that, which when you convert it becomes 16. And then it sends these two parameters to parallel. Let's jump into parallel. Immediately rename these parameters. I'm going to call it my input. I'm going to call this one environment. Once again, this environment got passed in as a char array, so we're going to retype it to be char array. All right, so scanf takes my input, casts it in as a %d, and I'm going to relabel the local variable to be int. Then it passes the actual integer and the environment variable into dummy. So let's click into dummy. I'm going to relabel this to be my input, but my input this time is going to be an int. So this undefined, I'm going to recast it to be int. Then this parameter, once again, is our environment variable. Once again, as you rename it, go ahead and take a look at some of this craziness below, because once we change it from an integer to a character array, that craziness will disappear. All right, so now we can read this craziness a little bit better. If the counter of the environment array is not null, or if it is null, then return 0. If it's not null, continue on. The string compare of the counter at the environment array must equal LOLO for at least 3 characters. If it does, it returns back a 1. So I'm going to call this result. My apologies. String compare. String compare is going to return a 0 if they are the same. So here I'm expecting the result to come back as a 0. So if it doesn't come back as 0, then keep doing it until it comes back as 0. And then we have this .bss. So a couple ago, we saw that the program was pretty much the same, except for a data field was being used to save the number 1. Same thing is happening here. So I'm going to go ahead and relabel this BSS to, I'm going to call it dummy dat for data. So dummy dat is going to be 1, and which return is also going to be 1. Okay, so I could hold down Alt and hit left arrow a couple times, or I could click here, which is going to fix this over here. Hold down Control Shift and hit F, find references to, click OK, click on the first one. Sorry, the first one. That'll take me back to where I was. So dummy gives out a result. The result, if the string compare is same, the string compare comes out to 0, but it is going to keep going until it gets to 0, and then when it's done, it's going to return a 1. So we're looking at getting a 1 back from the dummy. So if the result is not equal to 0, aka if the result is 1, then continue on. We're going to make counter equal to 0, but while counter is less than or greater than 10, and if the integer is even, and if dummy dat, which we saw earlier, equals 1, then the password is okay. We can exit with a 0. So if all goes well, we should be able to do CrackMe, in which we can do 4444. Once again, it's underneath a counter of 10. It comes out to an even number. Dummy dat is indeed a number 1, and it equals up to 16. All right, password is okay. All right, so what else does this program have hidden for us? I'm going to click on parallel. I'm going to click over here inside of the assembly code. Control Shift F, find references to. Let's click on parallel here. It's going to take us over here, and this is where we're done. Once we go into parallel, it calls the exit command, and we have exit. So what would happen if we don't equal to 16? If we don't equal to 16, we're going to come down here into che. Well, what is che? Let's double click on it. Oh, password incorrect. I don't like this label of che, so I'm going to call this print incorrect. All right, I'm going to hold down Alt and hit my left arrow, go back a little bit. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to rename parallel because it's my reverse engineering project. I can relabel it to whatever I want to. So I'm going to call this verify pass okay. All right, so if it equals 16, pass is okay, and then it's going to call exit 0, and it's going to exit. Likewise, if it doesn't equal 16, it's going to come in here into the print incorrect, and then it's going to print incorrect, and it's going to pass 0. All right, and then the same thing. Once again, I leave this up to you guys to be able to find out. If it equals 16, go to pass OK and exit. If it doesn't equal 16, print incorrect, then exit. So all bases are covered, right? But for some reason, we still have the rest of this code that says if the environment comes back with a return value, which the result, if you go into dummy and you find out that the environment variable is there, you're going to return 1. And if the result is not 0, aka if the result is 1, then continue on with the counter. The counter is less than 10. The integer is even. Print this out and then exit. So my challenge to you is to find a way that you can get 0x08 to print this string right here. So I leave that in your all's capable hands. All right, so that is number 8. We are done with number 8, in which the password was something equals out to 16 that's even, that has that date in it, that data in it. And yeah, we're ready to go. And is even. All right, so last but not least, number 9. Let's see what number 9 has in store for us. Not been analyzed. Would you like to analyze it? No, nope, because I want to delete all the text. Ah ha ha. There are no text in here. I wonder if this one is compiled the same way. So let's go ahead and analyze it. Let's kill PDB. Let's kill RTTI. Let's enable external parameters. Let's analyze it. And then once that's done, we can jump into exports, jump into entry. And once again, it's labeled with fun for all the functions. I'm going to go ahead and relabel this one to, what was this? CRT startup. Then we're going to jump into there. We're going to find our main function. Once again, exit code equals main function plus parameters. So this function right here, I'm going to call main. Then we're going to jump into main. We got our two functions that are always there to begin with. We have our printfs and our scanfs. Then we have this. Once again, I'm going to rename this local variable to my input. This param3 more likely is going to be our environment variable. We saw that earlier when we renamed the function to main. We saw that it was passing in the environment variable. Once again, it's going to more than likely be a character array. Oops. All right, and then once again, I believe they called this one check, so I'm going to stay with the same naming convention. I'm going to call it check. All right, while true, string length of param equals length. I'm going to come up here to param, change this to my input. I'm going to change this param to environment This integer is not supposed to be an integer, it's supposed to be a char array. Let's take a look. If length is less than or equal to my counter. All right, this one is going to be the char and array. I have char array cast to D. It's going to give me an int that I'm going to call int. Int plus the old total equals the new total. New total has to equal out to 16 once I convert it. Here's this fun functioning thing again, and I would not be surprised if it was verify if the password's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and call it verify password okay, and let's see if I am right. So we click into it. Let's change this parameter again. We're going to make this the my input one. We're going to make this the environment one. Once again, it's not an integer, it is a char array. Scanf, my input to %d. It's going to pop out with a local integer that I'm going to call integer, in which we are passing it into fun again. Let's see what's inside of this fun. This is the same thing with the really confusing way to verify if it's null or not. So come up here, I'm going to call this my input. I'm going to call this environment. I'm going to relabel or retype this one to be a char array. Once I retype to be a char array, this null sentence becomes a lot more readable. Call this our counter again. So if the counter of the environment variable is not, or if it is null, then exit and exit -1. Have you guys seen that before? What could that possibly mean? So I did some research and I found out that through MSDN, there's 3 types of there's 3 types of exit codes that are passed. 0, which we've seen this entire time, which means success. Number 1 means that, an exception has been thrown. Then -1 is an outright error. Just errored out, going to stop, not go any further. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. So this one is going to exit out and not continue, and it's going to exit out in such a way that is causing an error. So let's take a look at exactly what's going to happen. Since I'm currently in this decompile window, I'm going to go ahead and continue my relabeling. Then we will see exactly what happens. Here's this dat. I'm going to call this, what did I want to call that? Result dat. Let me exit out of all these windows that I just randomly pulled up. Let me hit L for relabel. Don't remember what I called this function last time, but what we're going to call this one is the string compare function. All right. So I'm going to click over here in my assembly code, Control Shift F, bring up my references so I can easily go back one without pressing the Alt arrow a couple hundred times. This is going to be my result, so I'm going to enable this to result. So when we verify that the password is okay, we come in here to see. I'm going to relabel this to verify LOLO. There we go. So I relabeled that one, so it's a little bit easier for me to understand. So I'm going to Alt and left arrow back a couple times. We try to verify the pass, and in verifying the password, we verify that the environment variable is LOL. If we don't verify that the environment variable is LOL, it exits out in such a way that it more or less crashes the program. So if we've seen before, if we don't do LOL, it just says the password is invalid. It continues on, it just says password is invalid. So let's see what happens if we don't have an environment variable of LOL with this 9th CrackMe tutorial. So let's go CrackMe 009.exe. Alright, so first off, before I even type anything in here, and I went ahead and hit Control C to exit out of that, let's see if we have an LOL variable still. We still do. It is still there. It is still existent. So what I want to do is I want to get rid of this variable. And there's only one good way to get rid of the variable. You have to assign the variable no value. Then you have to reboot your explorer.exe. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So we currently have a value of hello. I want to set LOLO to equal absolutely nothing. So let's see what LOL now equals out to. Variable is not defined. But if we still type in, say, 4444 with the assumption that is like all the others, hey, there we go. I did not even have to close out explorer.exe that time. But if you look, I typed in 4444. But since the variable LOLO is no longer defined, when I typed in the password, even if the password is right, or even if the password was wrong, the program comes to an abrupt halt. It errors out. It does not continue. It stops. So let's see what happens if we would actually have the right variable defined. All right. So let me come here. Control Shift F. Nope. Sorry. My apologies. Click in here in the assembly. Control Shift F. Find references to. Click on the first one. And let's follow it on. All right. If it does come back good with the result of 1, meaning that we have the local environment of LOLO, then it continues on here, in which we're going to relabel this counter if counter is under 10, and if integer is even, and if the result that is 1, then password is okay. It exits fine. I'm going to click on this pass okay. I'm going to click over here on this verify pass okay. Control Shift F. Find references to. Let's click into there. So if the password is okay, it says okay and it exits. If it's not okay, then it runs this function, in which is going to be the incorrect and then the exit. So we're going to do print incorrect as a function name. I'm going to hold down Alt, hit my left arrow a couple times. I'm back in here. So if it's 16 and it has the environment variable, if it is even, if it's below 10, counter of 10, then pass okay, then exit. If not, print incorrect and then exit. And then if somehow you can get this WTF string to pop up, then you can continue on. Once again, I leave that challenge to you. So we've seen what the difference between the 8th and the 9th is. The fact that the 9th has a exit code of -1. So let's go with the assumption that we can set LOLO to hello again. And then we can verify that set LOL is indeed there. Set LOL is indeed there. And then we should be able to run CrackMe. And then we should be able to do 4444. And since it's even, since it's underneath 10, since it has everything that it needs to be for a proper password to include the environment variable, we should be able to run it. And now we got that password of okay. We have completed all 9. So the last video we did 0 through 4. This time we did 5 through 9. We are now complete with the CrackMe series. So please jump in, play around with it, see if you can actually get this string to print out a couple times. And by all means, if you have any questions at all, please reach out. Let me know what they are. So guys, I greatly appreciate you joining me. If you have any questions at all, please leave a comment down below. And as always, please like and subscribe to this video. Until next time, keep reversing.